You're listening to Watchmen on the Pod. All right, we're going to pick back up in our Old Covenant reading from the Septuagint that was translated by Charles Thompson in the 1800s. It's the first English translation, I believe. That's what they say. We are beginning the book of Exodus, chapter 1. It is written. These are the names of Israel's sons who went down to Egypt with their father, Jacob. They went, every one with his whole family: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judas, Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Dan, and Nephthalim, Gad, and Asher. Now Joseph was in Egypt. And all the souls from Jacob were 75. And when Joseph was dead, and all his brothers and all that generation and the children of Israel had increased and multiplied and were become numerous and grew more and more powerful, and the land caused them to abound, there arose another king in Egypt who knew not Joseph. And he said to his nation, Behold, the race of the children of Israel is become a great multitude and is mightier than we. Come, therefore, let us deal subtly with them. Perhaps when they are multiplied, if a war should happen to us, they will join our enemies and fight against us and depart out of the land. So he set taskmasters over them to afflict them with labors, and they built for Pharaoh fortified cities, namely Pitho and Ramses and On, which is Heliopolis. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew stronger and stronger. So the Egyptians were abhorred by the children of Israel, and the Egyptians ruled over the Israelites with rigor and made their lives bitter and hard labor in working clay and making bricks, and with all the toil of the fields, according to the several kinds of service to which they forcibly subjected them. Moreover, the king of the Egyptians spoke to the Hebrew midwives, of whom the name of the first in rank was Zipporah, and the name of the second Puah, and said, When you do the office of midwives to the Hebrew women, and they are delivered, if it be a male child, kill it, and if it be a female, preserve it alive. But the midwives feared God, and did not do as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the males. Whereupon the king of Egypt sent for the midwives and said to them, Why have you done this and saved the male children? And the midwives said to Pharaoh, The Hebrew women are not like Egyptian, for they bring forth instantly. Before the midwives can come to them, they are delivered. And God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and grew mighty. And because the midwives fear God, they established families for themselves. Then Pharaoh gave orders to all his people, saying, Every male child which is born to the Hebrews you shall throw into the river, but preserve every female alive. Chapter 2. Now there was a certain man of the tribe of Levi who had married one of the daughters of Levi, and she conceived and bore a son. Now when they saw that he was a beautiful child, they hid him 3 months. But when they could not conceal him any longer, his mother provided for him a wicker basket and plastered it with bituminous pitch, and put the child into it and placed it in the stagnant water by the side of the river. And his sister watched it at a distance to see what would become of it. And the daughter of Pharaoh came to bathe herself at the river, and her maids were walking with her along the bank. And seeing the basket in the stagnant water, she sent her maid and had it brought to her. And upon opening it, she saw in the basket a child weeping. And the daughter of Pharaoh had compassion on it and said, This is one of the Hebrew children. Whereupon his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, Shall I call for thee a nurse from among the Hebrews to suckle the child for thee? And the daughter of Pharaoh said, Go. Upon which the girl went and called the child's mother. And the daughter of Pharaoh said to her, Take care of this child for me and suckle it for me, and I will pay thee the wages. So the woman took the child and suckled it. And when the boy was grown up, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses, saying, I drew him out of the water. And after a course of many years, when Moses was become great, he went out to his brethren, the children of Israel. And as he was observing their distress, he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, who was one of his brethren, the children of Israel. Whereupon, looking about on every side and seeing nobody, he smote the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. And going out the next day, he saw two Hebrews quarreling, and said to him who was in the wrong, "Why dost thou beat thy neighbor?" To which he replied, "Who made thee a ruler or a judge over us? Dost thou mean to kill me, as thou didst the Egyptian yesterday?" Thereupon Moses was alarmed and said, "Is the thing become so public?" Now when Pharaoh heard of this deed, he sought to slay Moses, but he withdrew from the presence of Pharaoh and took up his abode in the land of Midian. When he came to the land of Midian, he sat down by a well. Now the priests of Midian had 7 daughters who tended the flocks of their father Jethro. And they, having come to the well, began to draw water to fill the troughs, that they might water the flocks of their father Jethro. And the shepherds came and drove them away. Upon which Moses arose and protected them, and drew water for them, and watered their flocks. And when they came to their father Reuel, he said to them, "Why have you come so soon today?" To which they replied, "An Egyptian protected us from the shepherds, and drew for us, and watered our flocks." And he said to his daughters, "And where is he? Why did you leave the man behind? Therefore call him, that we may eat bread." So Moses dwelt with the land, and he gave him his daughter Zipporah to be his wife. And his wife conceived and bore a son. And Moses called his name Gershom, saying, "Because I am a sojourner in a strange land." And after those many years, the king of Egypt died, and the Israelites groaned under their labors and raised a loud outcry, and their cry on account of their labors ascended up to God. And God heard their groans. God remembered his covenant, which he had made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And God looked upon the Israelites and was made known to them. Chapter 3. Now when Moses was feeding the flocks of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, he led them below the wilderness and came to the Mount Horeb. And an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a fire blazing out of a bush. And when he saw that the bush blazed with fire, but was not consumed, Moses said, "I will go near and see this great sight, why the bush is not consumed." But when the Lord saw that he drew near to look, the Lord called to him out of the bush, saying, "Moses, Moses." And he said, "What is it?" And he said, "Approach not hither. Loose the sandals from thy feet, for the place where thou standest is holy ground." Then he said, "I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." Whereupon Moses turned away his face, for he was afraid to look forward in the presence of God. And the Lord said to Moses, "I have indeed seen the affliction of my people in Egypt, and have heard their cry on the account of their taskmasters. For I know their sorrow. Therefore I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them out of that land, and conduct them to a land good and spacious, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the country of the Canaanites, and the Chittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Girgashites, and the Evites, and the Jebusites. Now behold, the cry of the children of Israel hath reached me, and I have seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppress them. Now therefore come, I will send thee to Pharaoh king of Egypt, and thou shalt bring my people the Israelites out of the land of Egypt. Thereupon Moses said to God, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh king of Egypt, that I should bring the Israelites out of the land of Egypt?" Upon which God spoke to Moses, saying, that I will be with thee. Even this is the sign for thee. And because I will send thee, therefore, when thou hast brought my people out of Egypt, you shall worship God on this mountain. When Moses said to God, behold, when I come, I'm not when, then. Then Moses said to God, behold, when I come to the Israelites and say to them, the God of our fathers have sent me to you, and they shall say, what is his name? What shall I say to them? On which God spoke to Moses, saying, I am the I am. Whoa, really? I am the I am. Moreover, he said, thus shalt thou say to the children of Israel, the I am hath sent me to you. Again, God said to Moses, thus shalt thou say to the children of Israel, the Lord, the God of our fathers, the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, have sent me to you. This is my everlasting name and memorial to all generations. Go therefore and assemble the senate of the children of Israel, and say to them, the Lord, the God of our fathers, hath appeared to me, even the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, saying, with watchfulness I have observed you, and all that hath befallen you in Egypt. Moreover, he said, I will bring you up from the oppression of the Egyptians to the land of the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Amorites and the Perizzites and the Girgashites and the Evites and the Jebusites, to a land flowing with milk and honey. And they will hearken to thy voice. And thou and the senate of Israel shall go to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and thou shalt say to him, the God of the Hebrews hath called us. Let us therefore go 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to our God. And I know that Pharaoh, king of Egypt, will not suffer you to go, but by a strong hand. Therefore, I will stretch forth my hand and smite the Egyptians with all my wonders, which I will do among them. And after these, he will dismiss you. And I will give the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that when you go, you shall not go away empty. But every woman shall ask of her neighbor and of him who sojourneth in her house vessels of silver and of gold and raiment, which you shall put on your sons and your daughters, and you shall spoil the Egyptians. Wow. Chapter 4. Then Moses answered and said, if they will not believe and hearken to my voice, for they may say, God hath not appeared to thee, what shall I say to them? And the Lord said to him, what is that in thy hand? And he said, a staff. Then he said, cast it on the ground. So he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent. And Moses fled from it. Then the Lord said to Moses, stretch forth thy hand and take it by the tail. So he stretched forth his hand and caught it by the tail, and it was in his hand a staff, that they may believe that they may believe thee, that the God of thy fathers, the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, who hath appeared to thee, said the Lord again, put thy hand in thy bosom. So he put his hand in his bosom, and when he drew his hand out of his bosom, his hand was like snow. Then the Lord said to him again, put thy hand in thy bosom. So he put his hand in his bosom, and when he drew it out of his bosom, it was again restored to the color of its flesh. Now, if they will not believe thee, nor hearken to the voice of the first sign, they will believe thee at the voice of the second sign. And if they will not believe thee for these 2 signs, nor hearken to thy voice, thou shalt take some of the water of the river and pour it out on the dry ground, and the water which thou shalt take from the river shall be blood on the ground. Then Moses said to the Lord, O Lord, I am not sufficiently qualified, neither heretofore, nor since thou hast begun to speak to thy servant. I have a stammering voice and a faltering tongue. Upon which the Lord said to Moses, who gave man a mouth? And who made the hard of hearing and the deaf? Him who seeth and the blind. Let me read that all over again because I kind of messed that up, I think. Verse 11. Upon which the Lord said to Moses, who gave man a mouth, and who made the hard of hearing and the deaf, him who seeth and the blind? Was it not I who am God? Now therefore go, and I will open thy mouth and teach thee what thou shalt say. Then Moses said, Lord, O Lord, provide another capable person whom thou wilt send. Whereupon the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses, and he said, Lo, is not Aaron the Levite thy brother? I know that he can speak well for thee. And lo, he will come out to meet thee, and when he shall see thee, he will be rejoined. Thou therefore shalt speak to him and commit my words to his mouth. And I will open thy mouth and his mouth and teach you what you shall do. He shall speak to the people for thee, and he shall be thy mouth, and thou shalt be to him as the oracle of God. And this staff which was turned into a serpent thou shalt take in thy hand. With it thou shalt perform miracles. Then Moses went and returned to Jethro, his father-in-law, and said, I must go and return to my brethren who are in Egypt and see if they be still living. And Jethro said to Moses, Go in peace. So after many years, when the king of Egypt was dead, and the Lord said to Moses and Midian, Go, return to Egypt, for all who sought thy life are dead. Moses took his wife and children and mounted them on asses to return to Egypt. And he took in his hand the staff which he had from God. And the Lord said to Moses, Thou art on thy way in returning to Egypt. See that thou do in the sight of Pharaoh all the miracles which I put in thy hands. And I will make his heart stubborn, so that he will not let the people go. And thou shalt say to Pharaoh, Thus saith the Lord, Israel is my firstborn son. And I have said to thee, Send away this my people, that they may serve me. If therefore thou wilt not dismiss them, behold, I will slay thy son, thy firstborn. Now when he was on his way at the resting place, an angel of the Lord met him and sought to kill him. Whereupon Zipporah took a sharp stone and circumcised her son. Then she fell at his feet and said, The blood of the circumcision of my son hath stopped me. So she departed from him, because she said, The blood of the circumcision of my son hath stopped me. Well, that's totally not what the King James says. It says that she threw the foreskin at his feet and said, Thou art a bloody husband to me. Now that's what the King James says. If I'm not mistaken, look it up, brothers and sisters. Seriously, this is so different. Let me read it again just so you see what it says. Starting at verse 21. Out of chapter 4. Now, when he was on the way at the resting place, an angel of the Lord met him and sought to kill him. Whereupon Zipporah took a sharp stone and circumcised her son. Then she fell at his feet and said, The blood of the circumcision of my son hath stopped me. So she departed from him, because she said, The blood of the circumcision of my son hath stopped me. Isn't that interesting? Now the Lord had said to Aaron, Go into the wilderness to meet Moses. So he went and met him at the mount of God, and they saluted each other. And Moses told Aaron all the words of the Lord which he had sent, and all the orders which he had given him in charge. And Moses and Aaron went and assembled the senate of the Israelites. And Aaron rehearsed all the words which God had spoken to Moses, and he performed the miracles in the presence of the people. And the people believed and were rejoiced that God had visited the children of Israel, and that he had seen their affliction. So bowing their heads, the people worshipped. Chapter 5. And after this, Moses went in with Aaron to Pharaoh. And they said to him, Thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, Let my people go, that they may keep a festival to me in the wilderness. Upon which Pharaoh said, Who is he that I should hearken to his voice, so as to send away the Israelites? I do not know the Lord, nor will I let Israel go. And then they said to him, the God of the Hebrews hath called us. Let us therefore go 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God, lest death or destruction befall us. Thereupon the king of Egypt said to them, why do ye, Moses and Aaron, divert the people from their labors? Begone, each of you, to his work. And Pharaoh said, behold, this people is now numerous. Therefore we must not let them rest from their labors. So Pharaoh gave orders to the taskmasters of the people and to the clerks, saying, you shall no more give the people straw to make bricks as heretofore, but let them go and gather straw for themselves. Yet the daily task of brickmaking, which they now perform, you shall lay upon them. Thou shalt make no abatement, for they are idle. Therefore they have cried, saying, let us go and sacrifice to our God. Let the people of these men be made heavy. He's mean. And them employ their thoughts about that, and not trouble themselves with vain discourses. Upon this, the taskmasters and the clerks hurried them and spoke to the people, saying, thus saith Pharaoh, I will no more give you straw. Go and collect straw for yourselves where you can find it, for no abatement shall be made of your task. So the people were dispersed through all the land of Egypt to collect stubble instead of straw. And the taskmasters urged them, saying, complete the customary daily task as when straw was furnished you. So they're not going to cut it back at any time. You do the same amount of bricks as you did before when we provided the straw. Now you provide your own straw and do the same amount. That's what it sounds to me like they're saying. And when they beat the clerks of the nation of the Israelites, who were set over them by the officers of Pharaoh, and said, why have you not, as heretofore, completed your task of brick making today? The clerks of the children of Israel went and cried to Pharaoh, saying, why dost thou deal thus with thy servants? There is no straw given to thy servants, yet they say to us, make bricks, and lo, thy servants are beaten. Wilt thou then deal unjustly with thy people? But he said to them, you are idle. You are idlers. Therefore you say, let us go and sacrifice to our God. Go therefore now and work, and there shall be no straw given you, yet you shall deliver the task of bricks. So the clerks of the children of Israel saw themselves in a miserable situation when they said, you shall be allowed no abatement from the customary daily task of brickmaking. And upon meeting Moses and Aaron, who had come to meet them as they came out from Pharaoh, they said to them, God look upon you and judge, for you have made the smell of us horrible before Pharaoh and before his servants, to put a sword in his hand to kill us. Thereupon Moses turned to the Lord and said, O Lord, why hast thou afflicted this people? And why hast thou sent me? For since I went to Pharaoh to speak in thy name, he hath ill-treated this people, and thou hast not delivered thy people. Yeah, it's so sad. All right. You know what? God delivers in his time, and he's always on time. We got to remember that. Praise God. All right. That ends our first 5 chapters out of the Old Covenant, the Septuagint, from the book of Exodus. Have a great day, brothers and sisters. And always keep your eyes on Jesus Christ and your nose in the book, which is the Word of God. And let us embed the Word of God upon the tablets of our hearts, so you and I will not sin against God or be deceived. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.